I think that I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had a moment across the political spectrum of some form of progressive communication that's either left them bewildered or a little like, I don't know about that. But I also think at the same time, there is a message of what I would call like common sense, patriotic pluralism. Yeah. That is a majority message, which is like, if some father and mother have health care for their kid lined up who's trans, just stay the fuck out of their business. Let them make that decision. That's their decision to make. And you don't have to make...
Bill Maher, known for his blunt approach, just challenged the woke agenda and media bias, putting MSNBC's Chris Hayes on the defensive.
He said something I've heard Democrats say a lot. We didn't get our message out. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but that's it. And I've said this before to Democrats. No, you did. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You did get your message out, and people don't like the message.
Maher, true to his style, sliced through the political spin and exposed the core of Democratic messaging failures without hesitation.
Bring it to what Elon Musk is spewing out, unfortunately, on X. You sound like Brett Stevens now, with all due respect. No, it's a joke. That's a real time.
And you sound like him, who looks like Rachel Maddow. Ken Martin guy, he said something I've heard Democrats say a lot. We didn't get our message out. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but that's it. And I've said this before to Democrats. No, you did. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You did get your message out, and people don't like the message.
It was Axios that they gave the new media seat to, and that is to Mike Allen, who is like an established reporter in Washington. Axios has been around for like 5 years, sold for $500 million. I don't really consider it new media, and I thought it was interesting that was their first new media.
It is new media, because old media sells for $1.
That is true.
He's voicing what many have felt for years. Some leftist policies are simply disconnected from everyday life.
So one, I think there's an imperative right now for the party to stand up against the most destructive things that Musk and Trump are doing. And I think they're doing some genuinely destructive things. I mean, there's people walking around the world right now with like devices inside their bodies from clinical trials sponsored by USAID that they can't get out. The guards that were guarding ISIS prisoners in Syria were paid on USAID salaries that got cut off. There's a 25-year-old mucking around the code base of the Treasury system. So there's things they have to do to try to oppose. But it's also the case that like all of the reflection that happened after losing that election and trying to figure about how do you win back people you lost was real and true. And I guess my feeling is you gotta fight, you gotta try different things, and you have to be authentic. You can't like reverse engineer any of this off a blueprint. And I really think this is true about politics. Steve Jobs once said, it's not the customer's job to know what they want. Like, it's our job. And you couldn't have reverse engineered Barack Obama off of George W. Bush. And you couldn't have reverse engineered Donald Trump off of Barack Obama. What happens in the end of an election is everyone sifts through the data and they come up with their perfect, their plan based on, well, this worked and with this group and we got attack here and there. And what politics about is a certain point is like innovation and communication. You got to come up with new...
The argument is whether the child should make the decision.
But the child is never making the decision. The parents are always making the decision. Parents consent to medical care.
Well, here in California, you're allowed to hide it from the parents if the kid is...
Yes.
Thank you, one person who knows that.
But I mean...
Somebody knows that.
If you enjoy content that pushes back against the norm and keeps it real, hit that subscribe button. I'll wait. Done? Welcome aboard. Let's dive into this heated exchange. Bill Maher and Chris Hayes, two major voices, didn't just debate for the sake of argument. They tackled an issue that matters. It all started when Maher called out what he sees as the fundamental flaw in Democratic messaging.
Remains the road, because this is important. He wanted to, this week, he's suing the 12-member commission, the California Coastal Commission. He launches his rockets from Vandenberg Space Force Base. He used to call it Air Force Base, but I guess now we're into Space Force time. He wanted the proposal to expand the number of launches. Okay, again, one of the most impressive companies, an American company. He wants a little more, give it to him. No. The commission, some bureaucrat, said nope, and this is the reason why. Commissioner Carol Hart saying, we're dealing with a company, the head of which has aggressively injected himself into the presidential race and made it clear what his point of view is. Yes, because he lives in America, and he can do that.
Maher didn't hold back. In his view, the issue isn't that Democrats struggled to get their message across, it's that people heard it loud and clear and simply didn't like it. To Maher, the real challenge is cutting through the noise and addressing what truly matters to voters, urging Democrats to reconnect with the everyday realities of average citizens. Chris Hayes, however, approached the debate from a different angle. He argued that Democrats have two key responsibilities right now. First, they must push back against what he described as the harmful influence of figures like Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
White House admitting more influencers and podcasters. Oh, the press corps. Yeah, the press room is different. I mean, it reflects America.
I think it's great, obviously, but I think it's a good step. I mean, this is how people are getting their news.
It is. I mean, how can you deny it?
I was actually over the legacy or the podcasting people. They're all happy. And then they have like the one rotating chair, which I guess is pretty cool. So there's always like somebody new that comes in.
So this is you're at the White House, you're talking about?
Yeah.
But it was Axios, who is like an established reporter in Washington. Axios has been around for like 5 years, sold for $500 million. I don't really consider it new media, and I thought it was interesting that was their first.
Well, it is.
What do you mean by that?
Well, that's what Bezos bought the Washington Post for. He bought it for like $1.
Maher didn't hold back. To him, the problem isn't that Democrats struggled to get their message out. It's that people heard it loud and clear and didn't like it. His main concern: cutting through the noise and addressing real voter concerns. He urged Democrats to reconnect with everyday people instead of clinging to strategies that no longer work. Chris Hayes, however, had a different take. He argued that Democrats have two primary responsibilities: countering what he described as the harmful influence of figures like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. According to Hayes, Musk's controversial ventures and Trump's political maneuvers remain pressing concerns. But is that truly their biggest issue? Maher seemed to think otherwise, implying that Hayes' argument felt more like a convoluted maze than a clear strategy. Here's where it gets interesting. Maher's rebuttal was sharp. He didn't just critique the Democratic Party's current stance. He highlighted a deeper issue: authenticity. Voters don't just need to hear a message, they need to believe it. When people reject a party's messaging, doubling down on the same strategy isn't the answer. It's time for a reality check. Maher made an interesting comparison to Steve Jobs' philosophy. Jobs famously argued that customers don't always know what they want, implying that innovators must show them. But Maher pointed out a key difference: politics isn't tech. Voters aren't consumers waiting for the next big thing. They need to feel connected to policies that genuinely improve their lives. This was his challenge to Democrats: stop relying on failed strategies and start addressing why their message isn't resonating. The conversation then shifted to one of today's most contentious issues: parental rights in education. Hayes argued that Democrats should champion parental decisions regarding gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth. His stance: let parents decide what's best for their kids. Yet Maher and many critics see a different problem, one where schools might make pivotal decisions without parental involvement. That's a red flag. Maher pointed out that while protecting children's rights is crucial, there's a fine line between that and sidelining parents in critical matters. He didn't mince words, accusing the left of not only alienating voters with unclear policies, but also engaging in what looks like a significant overreach. Maher then took aim at the legacy media, arguing that they're not just passive observers but active enablers of flawed messaging. According to him, mainstream outlets have failed to present the full picture, sometimes even driving a wedge between ordinary Americans and reality. His challenge to them: acknowledge the disconnect and start reporting honestly, or risk becoming just another cog in the machine of political miscommunication. And then Maher addressed a rising force: new media. While traditional outlets cling to outdated narratives, fresh voices are shaping modern political discourse. Maher acknowledged that this shift is crucial, as authenticity and relatability are now winning over scripted, legacy-driven messaging. This, he argued, is where the real battle for public trust is happening. At its core, Maher's critique wasn't just about tearing down Democratic messaging. It was a wake-up call. Adapt to modern political realities or continue down a path of electoral struggles. The message is clear: authenticity, relatability, and addressing real voter concerns should be the priority. It's a lot to take in, but that's the nature of political discourse today: complex, layered, and critical. Now we turn it over to you. How do you think the left can realign its message to truly connect with voters? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because at the end of the day, your voice makes the difference.